The school I have chosen to do my placement at is called Parkwood E-Act Academy. This is in a deprived area of Sheffield called Shirecliff, and the school has around 800 pupils. My first experience working with children was when I was around 13. This is when I first became a Cub Scout leader. This was challenging as, at an age that is not much older than the children I was working with, the first challenge was to try to get the respect of the children and aim to treat me as a leader, not another child. I believe this is relevant to the teaching profession when setting boundaries with students and being professional. When doing badges, it was a good link to a classroom environment and helped me to develop a key teacher standard of promoting good progress and outcomes. Since coming to university, I have come to the realization that the competitiveness of my field of work and therefore decided to try and further improve my employability. I started to do this by completing my level 1 coaching course, and now I work with under 8s and under 15s football team in Sheffield. This has further developed my abilities to plan and deliver well-structured sessions. This is an essential standard for teachers to acquire. As I run the team, opposed to just helping another coach, I deal with all the parents and have to communicate everything with children and parents to make sure everybody knows what is happening at all times. A reason I decided on Parkwood for my placement was to improve my behaviour management. Before I chose schools, I spoke with people that knew about schools in the area, and I told them that I wanted a challenge. I aim to take myself out of my comfort zone that I've usually been in through my short professional life. The majority of people who I spoke to told me that if I wanted a challenge, Parkwood was a place that would allow me to come out of my comfort zone. I wanted to experience things I may never experienced before. In my previous experience, I have not necessarily had to be culturally aware with parents or children, whereas Parkwood is a very multicultural school. Improving my global and cultural awareness is a core skill for employability according to York and Knight's aspect of employability. I wanted to help students who have maybe had a struggling upbringing and give them the best chance to do well for themselves and improve their quality of life. I feel like it is a much more rewarding task to help those who have struggled to improve rather than those who have never struggled. This has been a general week for me on my placement. The day starts at 8:30 and usually ends at 3:20. Although most days I would stay back for clubs such as trampolining, cricket, football or rugby. This has meant that my day would usually end at around 4:30. Sometimes, as the students' exam and coursework deadlines are getting closer and closer, I would swap some lessons for a GCSE or BTEC student catch-up lesson. This was beneficial for me, as on my skills audit, I identified reading effectiveness and demonstrating good subject knowledge as a key area for improvement, and they are key aspects of employability according to York and Knight, and key teaching standards according to the Department of Education. Helping students helped me to refresh my knowledge and overall helped me to improve my understanding of the curriculum. My first learning outcome was to improve my ability to help students with challenging behaviour, to start to get more work done and decrease disruption in a PE and classroom setting by creating a professional relationship with students. An example of me developing my skill working with students with challenging behaviour was when on my second day I was put with a group of boys and one particular boy who never stayed on task in class and would always disrupt the whole class. At the beginning of the lesson, he was doing no work, took a long time to log on, and would keep disrupting the class. But as I spoke to him and began to build a relationship, find common ground, I had helped him to start to do some work. He began to get a lot more coursework done. By the end of the lesson, when his friends would try to talk to him, he would ignore them and try and get as much coursework as he could done. The teacher in the class saw how much work he had done, while sat with me and sent him down to do another lesson of catch-up with me, because he had never done so much work. As previously mentioned, my behaviour management was a key area of the teacher standards that I identified as an area for improvement. So by creating this challenge for myself, this will give me experience and help me to develop as a professional. The skills audit also identified that I need to improve my adaptability, and by taking on these new challenges and working with difficult students, I am improving the skill that York and Knight state as an important personal quality for employability. My second learning outcome is to be able to read a classroom and try to identify students that need help but may not want to ask for it. I identified this as one of my weaknesses while delivering lessons and seminars. People didn't completely understand, but some students don't always let you know when they are stuck. I reflected on this using the experimental learning cycle and identified that, as a professional, I need to improve my initiative. This was also reflected in my skills audit. According to York and Knight, initiative is a key personal quality to improve employability. By reflecting and improving my initiative, this will help me in a professional setting to become more professional and employable. On my placement, I have become a lot more aware of the students and have acknowledged when students are not on task or look confused. On the first Friday of my placement, I was helping a GCSE class catch up on their coursework. I was more aware of where students were up to as I walked past, and would check again the next time I walked past. I walked past a student, and when I came back 5 minutes later, he hadn't wrote a word. So I spoke to him and explained that he didn't understand at all, so I sat with him and helped. By the end of the lesson, he had completed the whole of his coursework. My third learning outcome was to improve my delivery skills to a class of students independently. Delivering to a class of students is a key fundamental in the teaching profession. I aim to improve my planning and delivering with confidence. Self-confidence is a personal quality that my skills audit identified as an area for improvement. York and Knight suggests that self-confidence is a key aspect of employability. Therefore, by improving this, I should improve my professionalism and employability. I also feel this would improve my independence. Independence is a key aspect for teachers, as they have full responsibility over the education of all their pupils. According to my skills audit, independence was also an area for improvement to improve my employability. Although I have not yet planned and taught a lesson, I aim to plan and teach a lesson a week for the last 3 weeks of my placement, and use these lessons and reflect on how I did and try to improve. This will further improve my employability, as York and Knight state that reflectiveness as a personal quality for employability. Some feedback that one of my mentors has given me when helping students is to begin to help them and give them ideas with their work, instead of staying and watching them, to move around the classroom and let them get on with the work themselves. This feedback was very beneficial for me, as I found that when I would sit with the students for way too long, they would begin to become reliant on me, and by moving around I helped more students and they would get more time to work independently. For my action plan, as previously mentioned, for the rest of my placement I aim to plan and execute lessons independently with confidence, because as previously mentioned, self-confidence and independence are key aspects of employability. Therefore, by improving this, I should improve my professionalism and employability. Part B. An overview of inclusion/SEN legislation and policy. According to the National Curriculum in 2014, in England every school must offer a curriculum which is balanced and broadly based and which promotes spiritual, moral, cultural, mental and physical development of all pupils at the school. They must also prepare pupils at the school for the opportunities, responsibilities and experiences of later life. The national curriculum states that with regards to inclusion, every student should be held to a high standard by their teachers. Stretching practice should be planned for students whose achievement is far above the anticipated standard. They have even larger responsibility to create lessons for students with low past achievement or who originate from disadvantaged circumstances. Teachers should utilize proper assessment to develop potentially high goals. The national curriculum also states that there are many diverse groups of students, many with disabilities, also have special educational needs, and lessons should be planned so that there are no obstacles to prevent each student from succeeding. The DFE 2015 states that the pupil with SEN must always be supported appropriately and should be able to engage with students who do not have SEN at all costs when appropriate. An important policy for schools to follow is to have a teacher that is responsible for SEN provision. This is a key responsibility, and parents should always be informed when provisions are being made for pupils with SEN. My chosen SEND provision is ADHD. I chose this because at Parkwood it is clearly the most prominent provision in the school. ADHD is a mental health disorder that is diagnosed by observing and analysing one's behaviour. According to the NHS, symptoms of ADHD can be categorised into two types of behavioural problems: inattentiveness, which is a difficulty of concentrating and focusing, and hyperactivity and impulsiveness. Many people with ADHD have problems that fall into both of these categories, but this is not always the case. Examples of inattentiveness are having a short attention span and being easily distracted, making careless mistakes, appearing forgetful or losing things, and being unable to stick to tasks that are tedious and time-consuming. People with ADHD have a pattern of inattention or hyperactivity, impulsivity that affects their day-to-day functioning and/or growth. According to Doyle 2022, the absence of defined diagnosis procedures and assistance for ADHD has recently received attention in the UK. Only about 10 to 20% of people with ADHD will receive treatment. There are a multitude of ways to include students with ADHD in a classroom and PE environment. Martha Goldstein and Eklund 2018 said that the first step to including and supporting students with ADHD is to always be positive. Instead of telling them what you don't want to happen, tell them what you want to happen. This form of feedback will work best for students with ADHD, as well as the majority of your other students. Other ways in which I have experience at Parkwood of supporting students with ADHD are giving clear instructions and providing cues. Martha Goldstein and Eklund 2018 suggested it's easy to overwhelm students with complicated instructions. What appears to you to be a simple series of instructions may appear to your pupils to be complex. If you break down the instructions into one at a time and ask for feedback after each one, many learners with ADHD will find it simpler to cooperate. As previously discussed, students with ADHD are usually unable to stick to tasks that are tedious and time-consuming. Therefore, one way I would improve the provision is to simplify the curriculum and make sure that it is shown in a straightforward way to help students to concentrate and keep on top of their work. A way to improve the provision in relation to PE practically would be for students more practical time and to teach part of the syllabus through practical lessons wherever possible. At Parkwood, students will come into the class asking about practical lessons. When the teacher told them that they would be doing theory, students' behaviour would become a problem and classes would become hard to control. Thank you for listening.